I got a little bit of a rant and a little bit of a discussion on why products like the Schiit digital audio converter, used to be the Hell 2, now they've converted over to the Gunnr, why that matters so much in today's gaming space. But before I get into that, do me two favors. Number one, if you are interested in high quality sound and high quality settings for your home console experience, please consider checking out my audio playlist. I have a very expansive list of discussion topics ranging from equalizer settings to the best digital audio converters, the best kind of cans you can get. So do yourself a favor and check that out. And number two, while you're over there, please consider subscribing to the channel. All right, so let's get into it. Now, when PlayStation 4 launched, it came with an optical port, which is pretty standard because if you look back at consoles prior to PlayStation 4, well, optical ports were pretty standard. But PlayStation followed suit with what Apple had done. You remember a few years prior to that, Apple had Beats, and they basically absorbed Beats, and they started to change the way you listen to wireless audio. Now, they still do support Bluetooth audio, but the reality is they are specially tuned with special equalizer settings for the Beats to make them sound better. You still have your USB connection on your phone. Android is the same situation, although they're not as egregious when it comes to that third-party integration, but they'll probably be there soon. But Apple really started that, and PlayStation was like, hey, we're going to follow suit. So you've probably seen a lot of headsets with the PlayLink. And PlayLink is supposed to be a lossless, more high quality sound than Bluetooth because it's using kind of a proprietary adapter and drivers. It is found natively on the PlayStation Portal. It is also basically the way they want you to ingest wireless audio if you're on a PlayStation, because when they removed the optical ports, the only way to get nice quality sound out of your console was via the HDMI. Well, HDMI extractors are a wonderful thing. The problem with HDMI extractors is a lot of them do induce latency, and a lot of them don't necessarily have the latest and greatest standards, so you might miss out on a 4K 120 hertz experience. And I know maybe a lot of PlayStation games support that right now, but the idea is you have to break up a signal in a way that it wasn't necessarily meant to be broken up in order to extract high quality sound. And you had to make that determination as to whether you want to have a nice, clear connection from your console directly to your TV via a nice HDMI cable, or do you want to have something maybe not as good but get better sound? Or spend a lot of money on a native PlayStation headset and you'd be fine. Well, that's where DACs come in. DACs are the way to kind of fix that problem. And I was been a big fan of Schiit for a very long time. I got the Schiit stack right here. I got the Modi and Magni right in front of me. That powers my Sennheiser HD660s. Upstairs, I got the Schiit Hell 2, which powers my HD660 S2s. You see a theme here, right? So I am no stranger to high quality sound, but it requires a little bit of a setup. And I'm going to talk about, I'm not going to get into the setup today. That'll be another video. Make sure you check out that playlist because I'll post it there. But the problem is because PlayStation has kind of firewalled and gated the way that you get nice quality sound, you kind of have to think outside the box. And Schiit has been doing that for a long time. First with the Hell, then with the Hell 2, and now with the Gunnr. So I'm going to jump over here so we could take a look at it together. I want to walk you through a couple key features here. So the first thing you'll notice on the Gunnr is that, I mean, it's a sleek unit. Like, I think Schiit does a really, really good job of creating a nice high quality product. It's got a nice heft and feel to it. A lot of the other digital audio converters are very cheap plastic. And if you don't believe me, go watch reviews of pretty much anybody else that talks about DACs, and they'll always comment on how they'll hit it with their fingernails. You'll see that their fingerprint marks on it, and they'll talk about how it's got nice rubberized feet, so it sort of stays in place. You're not going to have that problem with the Schiit product. They're heavy, they're metal, they're bulky, they have a good feel to them, and they look clean. I think that's the other big part of it. So they continue that tradition with the Gunnr model. And if if the Gunnr's a little too much for you, by the way, just as an aside, the Fulla will do the job too. And you're probably going to ask yourself, well, do I need something like this? And I guess the question is, how good a sound do you want to hear? There's nothing wrong with SteelSeries. There's nothing wrong with Turtle Beach or the PlayStation PlayLink headsets like the official Pulse headphones or the earbuds. There's nothing wrong with those. But Bluetooth audio will never be and can never be as vibrant and as rich as wired audio, largely due to the limitation of how Bluetooth audio works, the latency that's introduced. There is interference oftentimes with the frequency, and headphones that are powered by batteries just can't deliver the same drive and same power that wired heavy impedance, high impedance headphones do. Sennheiser's 300 ohm impedance. Those require a significant amount of power to drive. Thankfully, both the Fulla and the Gunnr would match that. The Hell 2 does as well. The Hell 2 has since been discontinued and replaced by the Gunnr. There's definitely some trade-off space between the Hell 2 and the Gunnr. Like, for example, the Hell 2 has an adjustable audio knob where you can adjust the microphone. They got rid of that here. They don't have that anymore. But they have added some other cool things, I think, that are probably worth your time. So let's go and take a look at the Gunnr together. Let me blow this up because I am absolutely blind, and there's no way I'm going to be able to read that tiny little font. All right. So the Gunnr says, get serious about gaming and ditching weak, unreliable Bluetooth audio. Now, I get it. This is kind of marketing, but it is true. Do not necessarily bank on Bluetooth. You are trading high quality, lossless sound for the convenience of a wireless headset. And if you're fine with that, hey, that's the trade space. That's the old cost performance triangle pattern that we learn all about in program management, right? Yeah, I get it. You're going to give up one thing for another, but keep that in mind. The only super high power gaming interface with soundstage control bring details closer and here more accurately with a twist of a knob. No software or apps needed. So the big thing is equalizer settings. If you go back and watch some of my older videos, when I just started dabbling into performance audio equipment, I had the Astro, I think it was the A40 Tournament Ready. And it had an equalizer DAC that you could basically go in and adjust settings, and you'd plug it into your computer, you'd load a profile into the DAC, and it had 4 different presets. And I made 4 different presets, one with bigger highs, one with bigger lows, one more balanced, one, and it allowed me to sound whore in Call of Duty to great success, by the way. Or when I was playing a more grounded game like Days Gone, I'd get a little bit better bass, and I could adjust that to make it sound a little better when Deacon was driving around on his motorcycle. And I had those equalizer things. They were great, but you always had to go back to your computer, fiddle with the DAC, bring it back, and then you kind of had to remember, did this sound good or did it not? And it took a lot of incremental settings before you got the golden setup, right? They eliminate that with the Gunnr. I think that's a key selling feature of this product. And it's something that intrigues me because right now you don't necessarily have that seamless equalizer setting. And if you do, on the PlayStation, for example, great example, the PlayStation headset does have a very basic equalizer setting. You're trading it off again for a Bluetooth audio, but you can go in there and adjust the 3D audio. You can go in there and tweak some of the equalizer settings, not to the level of detail that you could do on some of the more professional setups, but it gives you a general feeling of some of the highs and some of the lows, and it'll let you play around with it just a little bit. But no software or apps needed. We'll get to that in a moment. Gunnr is adding a new thing that they call width controls and presence controls that'll work on any game, any music, any source regardless. And basically what it does is there's a knob that will allow you to expand the sound stage at any given kind of bulk set of frequencies. And you can turn the knob to kind of change equalizer settings in real time. And that's that knob. So I have the picture here. That's these knobs here in the front. Okay, you got the volume knob on the top, and there's your width, and there's your presence. You could see where my cursor is. You can actually see you'd actually be moving the waveform and increasing the waveform, width and presence, okay? Very, very novel concept. Let's go back down here. This is going to deliver some pretty beefy stuff. It says you can plug it into any PC, Mac, PS4, PS5, Switch, or iOS to get powerful, lag-free dropout sound. The key here, though, and the point I want to make, yes, this will work with USB out of the box, but the reality is you're probably not going to want to plug this directly into your PlayStation because, as I said, PlayStation has gated the way that you receive high quality audio. They only allow stereo output through their USB ports. You're going to want to use either an HDMI extractor, which I don't think is a great idea, or if you have a nicer TV, you're going to plug your PlayStation directly into your television via HDMI, and then you're going to take a optical cable from your television and run it into this product. I will get into my setup in another video. That's not what the point of this video is, but I want to point out that that's a little misleading. Don't just assume that it just plugs in the PlayStation and it works. You're going to basically take stereo sound and you're going to try to transpose it to make simulated surround sound. It's going to sound better than anything you've heard because it's going to be powered by one of the most powerful DACs on the planet. However, it's not going to sound as good as it could if you do it the right way. And we'll talk about the right way in another video, okay? The nice thing is that Gunnr is basically inline. So it's going to use a single USB cable with no additional external power. Right now you have the wall wart. Basically you have to plug it in to get power. You don't have to do that. However, if you want to, you can, and you may need to if you have higher impedance headphones. Another nice thing about an optical solution that you lose with USB is there's no noise. There's no twisted pair. There's no transmission, so you don't get that kind of squelch. You may have had this in the past where you would have computer speakers on your desk. Remember the DGOS button? Remember the DGOS? Your monitor would get all weird. You would sometimes on your computer speakers, you would pick up rogue waves and basically you'd hear like some distortion or maybe snippets of a song or snippets of somebody talking because basically any piece of metal is an antenna. This could be an antenna. It's grounded, so I'm not going to hear anything. The nice thing about a wall wart plug and the nice thing about an optical solution is you eliminate any of that feedback. Because it's all, obviously there's no twisted pair through an optical port. It's light and glass or plastic, but usually glass, right? And then obviously the wall wart plugs in and grounds down. But it's portable enough, you don't need that. We haven't had that level of power before on a shit product, and we're going to get it now. Gunnr was engineered from the ground up, and there's actually a really good article I'll post in the description box below from headfi.org where Jason, one of the lead guys, or he might be the founder or like the president, he basically does this huge blog post talking all about the philosophy that went into the design, which is very, very interesting. So they really take their time and build quality products. It's made here in the good old US of A, and I like that, okay? They got a 3-year warranty on this thing with a 1-year rapid exchange. So it's covered by a 3-year limited warranty that covers parts and labor, as well as a 1-year rapid return to make sure you're ready for the game. And if you don't like it, 15% and you're back in the fight. But I can't imagine you would not like it. So what makes this thing so good? The specs that matter. I love that they don't really like give you specs, but I could tell you, we'll get into the details here in a moment. At least I hope they have them. I like that it says size is very desk friendly. Like, can we get actual specs here? Yes, we can. I'm not going to bore you guys with the frequency or any of that kind of stuff, but the key I want to point out here is that if you are driving up to 300 ohm impedance headphones, so your high-end Bear Dynamics, your high-end Sennheisers, Odyssey, I believe, makes a 300 ohm solution. This thing will power it. And let me tell you, these Sennheisers require a massive amount of power to drive to get that really nice play through the sound. I like open back headphones, but that's another story. But I like the fact that this product will drive it very, very well. It's very, very impressive. Anything else you guys really care about? It does support any UAC2 device, which I'm not going to get into the USB standards. If you're curious about that, I do have a video talking about why the Schiit Hell 2 is such an amazing product. I actually read the UAC standard with you guys. We talk about Microsoft's involvement and the fact that Microsoft was basically a co-author of this with Intel, and kind of where Microsoft went astray and how PlayStation adapted it and they didn't. It's a whole thing. But it basically explains why you when you look at what consoles it works for, you don't typically see Xbox on there because they don't play nice. You think PlayStation's bad with sound quality? Well, oh boy. You should see what Xbox has to. They're a totally different animal. I mean, anyways. It's got a microphone input. Now, the one thing that I am not thrilled about on this that I cannot, I can't understand why. They seem to have reduced the microphone gain knob. Something that I thought was important in this shit, you could actually turn the volume up or down. Now, you can do it through your platform. PlayStation has a volume toggle for you to adjust it basically in-game by using the slider and hearing your noise. The problem is most external microphones that you're going to be plugging into this are lavalier based, which is basically like wide open. We're not talking the traditional cardioid. We're talking just basically like full bore. So depending on how you have it, where it's clipped, everything, you might blow your microphone out almost instantly if you can't adjust that. And I just wish there was a knob. There's knobs for everything else. I feel like there could have been space on here for this. Maybe it was a cost consideration or there was some sort of distortion. I'm not entirely sure, but I feel like that is kind of a miss on this product. That's probably the only negative thing I could say about it. But I think there are workarounds for it. Just be mindful of that. And I guess obviously you get a microphone that has a built-in line adjuster on it, but I don't know. Food for thought. So as we talked about, you can use basically inline power. You just plug right into your console and it works. Or if you want to use the wall wart to get a little bit more power, you can do that too. This thing absolutely rocks. I don't know if there's any frequently asked questions we care about. Yeah, well, let's look through the width and presence and then we'll wrap up. So width, as I said, expands or contrasts the scope of what you're hearing. You turn the knob to the right to make everything sound more expansive, to help you identify sounds that would normally be masked. Think of this as basically blending out the curve, right? Smoothing out the curve. It can make music sound more natural on the headphones. Presence, it enhances or suppresses sounds that you're most sensitive to. So you turn the knob to the right to bring voices forward or to hear some of the lighter noises, or turn it the other way to compensate for headphones with other mid-range issues. So basically, it's a fine-tune. It's a real-time equalizer fine-tune. If you don't like it, just balance them back out center, you're good to go. But if you're like, man, I feel like my bass is a little too exposed, and it depends on your headphones, right? I mean, it depends on two things, really. It depends on your headphones, but it also depends on your ears. Everybody hears things differently. Nobody has the golden ear. So it would kind of make sense that you're going to have the ability to kind of adjust what you want to hear on the fly. And I really, really, really like that. So I think this thing is incredibly awesome. Yeah, look at that right there. Why is it no Xbox? Because they're talking about UAC1 and they call it UAC 1 and UAC 2. Weird. So yeah, this is an awesome product. It's been out for a while. I think it's something that, a lot of people probably looked at the price and said, ooh, maybe it's a little too high. Maybe it's not something I want, but I ask you to compare this to other DACs on the market currently. Look at what other companies are doing. Look if they include a USB port. Look to see what kind of impedance they could power. Because the reality is there are cheaper solutions. There are $30 DACs online that you could buy on Amazon right now. The problem is, will they power higher impedance headphones? And if you don't have higher impedance headphones, how is the sound floor? And when you start to turn it up, is it going to bring up a hiss with it? And that's important. I think this is very well priced. I mean, obviously, I'd love to spend like $1 on it, right? Like, hey, give it to me for free. That'd be cool. I get it, they got to make a profit. But when you compare this to what is out there, probably the most competitive product with this is probably the Creative solution. Creative has a couple interesting ones. The problem is on one of their solutions, they use a proprietary optical import, which I don't understand. It's this weird plug. It's a short jump cable. It's got a very, very specific use case. I think that's just such a massive oversight that they've done. I don't understand it. And then they have the, I think it's called the GC7, which is a very multicolored, bright up, light solution, but I don't think it drives as hard as the Gunnr does. And it definitely doesn't look as good. So if you're interested in this has been out for a while. I think this product came out, I want to say like last year, like October, maybe even sooner. It's coming up on almost a year old. But I think it's worth talking about, especially in the context of Battlefield coming out. If you didn't get a chance to watch my review on that, I talk a lot about the sound design that goes into Battlefield. This product is going to absolutely rip on that game. And I think, it's one of those things where you get what you pay for and you get quality that matters if you want it. And if you have headphones that can support it and you have a nice TV, chances are you're probably not thrilled with your sound, or you're just using the sound that's included in the TV because it's convenient. But there is a massive, massive market of good headphones. There is a massive, massive market of good DACs. And I would argue the Schiit Gunnr is probably, if not the top, definitely top 2 or 3 on that list. This does replace the Hell. And the reason I'm doing this video is with the Hell being gone now. A lot of people are going back to my Schiit Hell 2 video reviews, and they're asking, hey, this is awesome. How does your setup work? How do I get it? Well, all of that applies to the Gunnr, but I thought since it's been almost 4 years since I talked about this, it's time to bring it back to the forefront, and it's time to kind of work through some of this stuff together. So more to follow on this. Like I said, this is just kind of a walkthrough right now of the technology and why it matters and some of the philosophy that goes into some of the design considerations that were taken. There will be setup guides later on. There will be unboxings. There will be sound tests, all that kind of stuff. This is kind of a long burn. We're going to work through this together. And lastly, like I said, it'll all be in the audio playlist. So check that link out below. Do yourself a favor. I would greatly appreciate it. I want to thank you guys so much for watching today. I know this is kind of a long video, but it's important. It's important to understand this stuff. It's important to understand why, things like optical ports matter and why there are different standards and what inline power supports. And it's important stuff to talk through. I know this video isn't going to be for everyone, and that's okay. And for those of you who made it to the end and provide questions and comments at the bottom, I really do appreciate you. I try to answer each and every one of your questions. I am very passionate about audio design, and I'm very passionate about getting the best possible experience. And I think this product is going to set you guys up for success. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves. And until next time, I will see you guys on the other side. Bye-bye.